I'm honoured to have three experts and specialists in different fields of tech for good joining us from Brazil, from New York and from England. And I'd like to introduce Simon Robinson, CEO of Holonomics Worldwide in Brazil, Sheryl Joyce, founder and CEO of Pet Pardon Limited here in the UK, though Canadian domicile, and Zach Moore, who is building Nala out in New York. Simon, would you like to give a brief intro to Holonomics and yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Spencer. It's great to be joining you all in this Tech for Good talk this afternoon, this sofa talk. Holonomics, I'm Simon Robinson, I'm British, based in Sao Paulo, Brazil. And Holonomics is a business consultancy, and our mission is to really facilitate transformation that matters. So we specialize in strategy, change management, customer experience design, innovation, and deep tech. In addition to that, I'm the co-founder of the Deep Tech Network based in Sao Paulo. And also I'm the co-author of 3 books: Holonomics, Business Where People and Planet Matter, Deep Tech and the Amplified Organization, and Designing Customer Experiences with Soul. And it's fantastic to be joining this conversation because for us at Holonomics, we have a very personal definition of what for us is deep tech. And for us, we really wanted to highlight to people, not only say the challenges and risks to humanity of highly advanced technology, but we wanted to provide a positive vision of the benefits that advanced technology can bring. So for that reason, we defined deep tech as the development of advanced technologies built from a foundation of human values by conscious ecosystems. So here we have 3 aspects of our definition. It's the advanced technologies themselves, it's the foundations of human values, and also the consciousness that goes into its development. And also it's the fact that you can't separate the technology from the people building it and implementing it. So it's quite a systemic conception of deep tech. And just to open up this conversation today, I'd love to share our Deep Tech Manifesto, because not only does this amplify and help people understand our concept of deep tech, it can also be used as a tool or a checklist to really see if what we're developing truly meets our desired purpose and values. So it's quite a short manifesto of 7 points. And I hope people watching today find a bit of inspiration from this manifesto, and that it can inspire many other conversations as well. So with the manifesto, the first point is the purpose of deep tech is to use deep thinking to find profound solutions to complex problems. We need to build our thinkings based on the philosophical foundations of systemic thinking to really truly find impact in that we're building. Deep tech combines analytical thinking and artistic consciousness. There's many ways of thinking about technology and how we actually design and innovate. So it's important to honor the artistic aspects of humanity, as well as the technological and the engineering achievements. Deep tech creates augmented intelligence, the combination of artificial intelligence with conscious human endeavor. This is not about replacing humans. It's not about locating technology inside of humans. It's how can we as human beings achieve more through the conscious and ethical use of advanced technologies. Point 4, privacy and ethics are core elements of deep tech algorithms. There are some major challenges on this point, and it'll be interesting to discuss these points in relation to Tech for Good and pet welfare today. Deep tech is developed by talented people who come from a rich diversity of backgrounds. I think nowadays I'd love to see much more of a breakaway, not just from, say, the San Francisco view of what a startup is and what technology is, but there are so many talented and creative people who may come from disadvantaged backgrounds. And it's up to us who are already working in this area to see how we can mentor, inspire, and help bring a much wider representative of number of people into the deep tech arena. Then the values of deep tech are the 5 universal human values of peace, truth, love, righteousness, and non-violence. Why do we say these five universal? Why do we say that these five values are universal human values? Because these are values that really represent the highest articulation of humanity. They really show us what the highest way of being in the world for humans are: peace, truth, love, righteousness, and non-violence. And when these are the values that inspire us and show us our north, then we can really do amazing things with technology. And then finally, deep tech helps us to explore our world and ourselves in ever more meaningful ways, honoring what it is to be human in our world. And sometimes I do feel that technology nowadays, it can be controlling, it has the potential to be harmful or destructive. But in our concept of deep tech, it helps us to explore the world and really honors this vision of humanity, a vision of humanity defined by the five universal human values of peace, truth, love, righteousness, and non-violence. And so hopefully this is a very positive conception of what we're doing with technology. And this can help inspire people such as Sheryl, such as Zach, such as yourselves, and such as everyone watching this, to really think about what aspects of technology do we really need to think about when we're developing it in order to really achieve this greatly desired impact that many of us are working towards all around the world in every continent. And again, thank you for this invitation to join in this conversation today.
That's brilliant, Simon. Thank you for that overview. Sheryl, would you like to introduce yourself and what you're doing?
Yeah, sure.
Because I think it's so disruptive.
Thank you, and thanks for having me. I'm excited to be on the panel. My name's Sheryl Joyce, and I'm the founder and CEO of Pet Pardon. I do not have a British accent. As Spencer alluded to, I am based in the UK. I am actually from Toronto, and I help animals. My go-to market is the US, so North America's broader scope. And I've actually honed in on an existing ecosystem of people that want to help shelter animals get into, with a foster or a rescue. And for those of you who are in the know, there is a big shelter crisis right now in the US and Canada, and it's actually, it's becoming an international problem whereby people are, backyard breeding, and there's more dogs than there's room for animals, and the traditional definition of shelter has kind of gone up by the wayside, and dogs are just being, surrendered in record numbers, and there's just simply not enough room to house them all. And unfortunately, the word euthanasia has kind of gone out the window, and perfectly healthy dogs are being, I won't use the K word, but euthanized for space. So it's very emotive, and I've built a platform whereby, if you're a person that sees a dog in need, you can't physically, foster or adopt the dog. A lot of the dogs, like I said, my go-to-market's the US, so a lot of the dogs are name of state. I share all kinds of dogs from all over the US on my platform. And so if you can't physically help a dog, the next best thing to do is to donate some money. And so we call that pledging. So it's very difficult to hone in on all the conversations and indications of interest in pledges. So you've got people that are sharing the dog on X, Facebook, Instagram, any kind of social media, on Reddit, and they're pledging an amount of money. But basically, if that dog gets rescued, that money's supposed to go to that rescue group. But how do you capture all those indications of interest? So I've created a platform whereby I've sort of crowdsource all of the information on one dog. It's a big monstrous project, but I'm gaining traction. So yeah, that basically I'm making it easy for people to donate to help get a shelter animal out of the shelter.
That's brilliant, thank you. Zach, you were introduced to myself and Reboundog community by Beth Miller, who'd stumbled across you somewhere and said I should talk to you, and here you are sitting on the sofa having a conversation. Let's hear a bit about what you're doing with Building Nala, please.
Yes, thank you for having me on the program. I'm really honored to be here. My name's Zach Moore. I'm the CEO and founder of Nala, which is Your Pet's Health Co-Pilot. It's an ID tag and a mobile app, and we use AI to give you personalized insights about your pet. We see so much opportunity at Nala for technology to improve our lives with our pets. And everyone uses technology in many aspects of our lives. And we see that tech and AI can be used in an ethical way to improve our bond with our pets. And yeah, and so that's what we're working towards at Nala.
That's great. So I picked up on your using tech and AI in an ethical way. This comes back to Simon, where he talks about the relationship we have with AI. I'd love to hear Simon's thoughts on what Sheryl and Zach are doing in the pet community.
I think what immediately comes to my mind is my wife Maria, who is the CEO of Brazil of Holonomics. We work together, and together we've developed our own definition of sustainability that really works for us. And we define sustainability as the quality of our relationships. So sustainability goes far beyond, say, how we are working to restore and manage our global ecosystems. It's about our relationships with our organizations, our communities, our families, our relationship within ourselves, and of course, relationships with all the animals and other beings who we share the planet on. And I can see so many opportunities between these two excellent endeavors. On the one hand, protecting our pets, on the other hand, helping like families care for them. And so when we think about sustainability as the quality of our relationships, I think the time has now gone where we have these like lone inventors that invent a single solution and it has an impact. We really now need to think of how we develop and innovate in ecosystems. And that's why we ourselves developed the Deep Tech Network in Sao Paulo. And when I think of some of the challenges that younger people have nowadays, developing startups, the vision is fantastic. We do actually have substantial amounts of technology, but it's often our relationships that can sometimes prevent us from really developing and gaining traction. So within, say, Pet Pardon, it's where are the key relationships? What do you need to pay attention to there to really grow? Because again, when we look at that as deep tech, it's wonderful. It's helping us really, really express our humanity through caring for animals. But one of the key parts of the solution that Sheryl's bringing is trust. We can be the most trusted partner for helping people who really want to help pets, even if they're not in a position to adopt. You know, how can we develop this trust? And also with the AI as well, trust again. There are many people who don't work in AI haven't really fully understood the challenges of AI and really what's happening behind the scenes. So this is, again, where the human values come into it. When people really live these human values, other people watching and reviewing, leaders who live by human values, they can really connect there. So it's this sense of connection. How can you really connect with communities, not through, say, talking about the technologies, but like living these values as well? And where are the key relationships? What are the key relationships that everyone needs to develop to really create a sustainable solution? Sustainable both financially and in terms of the lifetime and development, as well, of course, as the sustainable impact, which you both have already, of course, by these very excellent projects.
So, Sheryl or Zach, do you have thoughts on what Simon's just said?
Yeah, I lots of good nuggets there, Simon. I'll start with the relationships, the key relationships. So, when I started out, I just saw dogs being shared at shelters that needed to get out, and I'm a I'm a serial networker. I reach out to people. I ask questions. I started to research some of the rescue groups that were pulling some of the dogs, and so I learned very quickly So there's, 6 key personas in rescue. And we were talking about this before today started is there's a lot of things that have to come together to save just one dog or cat from a shelter to get them safely out. And so, there's, volunteers, there's people that pledge, there's fosters, adopters, rescues, and shelters. And so one of the key relationships I formed very quickly was with volunteers because I can't physically be on the ground. So I reached out to volunteers and said, look, I've got this platform. The old school way of, the intake photo. And we talked about this, Zach, as well, is that you adopted your dog because you saw a great video of your dog. And so intake photos don't do a dog justice. Volunteers actually go and they spend so much time, and I give them so much credit because it's probably heartbreaking. But they go and they take the videos, they get to know the dog, and they're gathering key information for potential rescue group or potential adopter. So I established relationships with volunteers. I've got, name a state. I probably have 2 or 3 volunteers that I quote unquote air quotes work with, and they when they've got a dog that they need to get out in a short amount of time. They'll send it to me, and I'll put it. Every dog I share on my Instagram page, I share on my platform, and basically what that does is that forms like a mini. You can pledge towards that dog on my platform instead of having all those different places to go to curate the pledges. You can come to Pet Pardon, you can pledge for the dog, and so or the cat. So the key relationships are volunteers, and then we can get back to the trust factor, whereby there's a couple of different aspects of trust with what I'm dealing with at Pet Pardon. Is one with the rescue groups, and so I'm curating the money for them, and they have to prove that they're in good standing. So basically, I oftentimes a rescue group will say, look, we're going to pull this dog that you've shared. Pledges are one aspect. They've got to foster that kind of thing. Again, all those key components need to come together to save a dog. But I'm just forming really good relationships with the rescue groups as well. And I'm helping some of the smaller ones get the money that have been pledged. I help with fosters, etc. But the other thing too is that I consider myself like I'm the community manager. So I live, eat, sleep, drink Instagram. And so a trust factor is there, whereby I've established a great brand presence, whereby if a dog does get rescued and someone's pledged money for that dog, oftentimes there's a protocol, basically, that when a dog does get rescued, there's a freedom video to prove the dog's safe out of the shelter with that rescue group. Then the rescue group, kind of has their credentials, 501c3, good status, good standing. And then people won't often, it's kind of nice, but it's also stressful. They'll say, look, Sheryl, I pledged for this dog, but I didn't see a freedom picture, and someone's asking me for money. And I'm like, hold the guns, hold, do not give any money to anybody until we've confirmed that dog's out. So it's nice. And I've, people are emailing me and asking me to post dogs on my platform just because they want to pledge towards a dog. So lots of nuggets in there, but that's just a couple. Relationships and trust are very important.
So Zach, how would you add to that?
If I could comment on that, yeah, I think the bond that people have with their pets, even those that they're not adopting, it's very strong. People will see a certain video. There's been videos that have spoke to me and there's a lot on Facebook and whatever. And it's like, I will drive. I was even considering driving 20 hours they're all in California out here. California is, I was going to drive 20 hours and get this husky, and like people can really feel these really serious, meaningful bonds digitally through pictures and videos of pets online. And yeah, that's how I adopted mine. I saw a picture, I was like, oh, she's so cute. And then we met in person. And so it's really changing how people are like interacting with pets, and it can be done digitally. And the advantage is scale. Many people can be reached. I've seen people transporting pets out of high-risk shelters across states. Like in the US, they'll go all over the place, just to alleviate some of the burden that some of these really busy shelters have. Like if you think about New York City, there's only so much space. Everything's very compact here. And a shelter, they only have n number of spots for pets. When those spots are full, and they are now, and pets are lining the hallways, rescues play an important, a necessary part in getting pets out of the shelter and getting them out into the community. And yeah, Instagram is huge.
So Simon,
Um,
I'll shut it.
No,
oh,
I love hearing this. Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to continue the talking about uh, where we might see. I really think technology and I think technology can form a bond between people and pets that they might never meet, and I think that's part of the solution in getting the shelters to be less full. A statistic that I have is that 1 in 5 surrenders come from a perceived lack of support. So people they're not using technology in a way, or they feel like isolated. And so to go back to what you're saying, Simon, being part of a community or a network, I think also can help with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because one of the things that just has come to my mind, hearing both of you, I really, 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 when we're helping startups, for example, or brands, we often help them think about how do they rethink about their impact, their own purpose. And we often look towards the future, what are the key trends? But it's not about looking at trends. If we look at what are the big human challenges right now, not only are we seeing a big challenge in terms of people's physical health, there's also a huge challenge in many countries in terms of mental health. And these two trends, physical health and mental health, they're putting a huge strain both on healthcare service providers and also organizations as well. We're seeing a lot of absenteeism from work due to both physical and mental health problems. And so in terms of thinking about who the personas are for, say, Pet Pardon, the actual dogs are themselves, because we can rethink the challenge. If there's a challenge about helping finding a home for these dogs, how can we help reduce some of the problems with mental health by having dogs play a protagonist role in this? How can we partner with healthcare service providers to help work with dogs to help them overcome some people's health challenges? And they can help people overcome many physical challenges as well, blood pressure, stress, that type of thing. And so you've got two big audiences, the healthcare services and also organizations themselves who have challenges managing their own people. I'm very much focused on this right now. We're really seeing this impact on businesses. And this is where, Zach, your technology comes in, because I know you've got this very systemic way of thinking about it and integrating different systems. So if we integrate mental health services as well, we've got this really interesting ecosystem that really truly understands the value of our canine friends, not just for being inside of a loving family, but what is their contribution as well. And this is where, again, we really stress the quality of our relationships and how we talk about the value of what we're doing in our startups to maybe sponsoring organizations. Because one thing I've always worked on is, one piece of advice I give startups: don't just think about what you can ask them to do for you in terms of funding. Really think about the reciprocal relationship. And when you think about the reciprocal relationship, what you can do for them, it really opens up some very creative opportunities. I'm not saying what I've suggested is the exact way forward. I'm trying to show you the way of creative thinking where you can really engage supporting organizations in maybe ways in which you hadn't previously thought about.
Yeah,
Mm,
I agree. Sorry, go ahead, Zach.
I was just
Go
gonna
ahead.
say, I have 3 working dogs, and there's no work for them to do. I don't live on a farm. I don't pull a sled. But thinking about the mental and emotional work that they can do is huge. And
Yeah.
I think that what we're building at Nala can be used to help people have more pets or to help organizations manage a lot of pets at scale. And we can, maybe there's a way, instead of having working dogs do physical labor, maybe they can perform more mental and emotional labor as they become more integrated into society.
I agree wholeheartedly. And so one of the things that I'm gathering is obviously data. So data is very important. So I'm listing dogs and I'm, keeping some really, I have some good statistics on, why a dog was maybe deemed medical or behavioral or whatever it is. But there's also a lot of organizations that go in and assess the dogs. And I think that's more that's needed a lot more because to your point,
Mm.
Simon, um, there's a lot of good dogs. I mean, that can be trained to be police dogs and they can be, ESA dogs. They can be there's a couple of programs for prisons. It's great. Like, dogs are going in and they're rehabilitating, being rehabilitated within the prison and helping. There's a lower recidivism rate from the prisoner that's helped. It's a mea culpa, right? The dog's helping the person and the person's helping the dog. So those are the kinds of things. And there's some organizations that are reaching out, and because I'm not physically, I don't know the dogs, and this is coming back to having the relationships with the volunteers. I've connected some of the volunteers of some interested organizations that are looking at the dogs to take them to be, support dogs, or to, there's some really great organizations that place dogs of veterans. It's wonderful. So it's just we need more of that. So the data that I'm gathering, the back end is very valuable because then I can go to these organizations and go, look, like there's like 10 dogs that you might want to look at. It's time consuming, but it's just part of the whole ecosystem. And I don't know, I'd have, I hear this all the time. I'd have a 500 acres and I have dogs, and cats. So anyway, but yeah.
The two
'Cause,
interesting points.
I'm sorry.
No, I'll shut up.
We'll come back to you in a minute, Spence, but
Thank you.
it's like another big area that I've been heavily involved in the past is gaming. And now I don't want to talk about, say, the gamification of dog care, but one thing that really strikes me was, let's think about the huge global success of certain caring games. Tagamotchi, for example, a huge success. But how could we do a much more human, deep version of that where it's very real? It's not a game. People enter into this virtual space where they're caring for real pets. And through some of the technology of Nala, you can really use that technology not to play a game, but to really know that not only are you looking after the dog, that you're making donations, but you're seeing the health, the improvement. There are some really interesting scenarios here to explore when you bring in game developers, because I swear I'm not really interested so much personally from, say, virtual reality. It just doesn't really work for me. I love music, I love live music, I love real world experiences. But what can we create there that could have massive global impact? When we start to think in this creative way, this is where I spoke about artistic consciousness as much as, say, the engineering or technological abilities, we start to really expand our thinking and looking at these problems in new ways as opportunities. Sorry, Spencer, I didn't mean to interrupt.
So I'll digress because I was going to ask, back in the real introduction, you talked about disenfranchised, disadvantaged people with the work that you do.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated through Reboundog empowering disenfranchised people because there's this human-animal bond. So that's one interest I seriously have amongst the three of you, the four of us. The second part of that, I was in a conversation, albeit briefly on a LinkedIn post, with a funder, I think he was in Europe, Switzerland, and he was looking at socialization to address mental health in humans. And of course I went back and said, human-animal bond has a huge exponential impact. And he's come back to me, I can't quote verbatim because I haven't got the phone bit in front of me, but he's looking at examples of where pets are playing a part, startups where pets are playing a part in it, which comes into this conversation. While I've got the mic, the other thing is I just had a comment in from Kieran Walsh, colleague and a Reboundog member in Ireland. To quote it, question for all. In some European countries, the lawful dog ownership response is placed firmly on the individual owner. And I think he's quoting Switzerland there. In many other countries like the USA, society sees rescue shelters as the cheap way to clean up the problem of dog abandonment. Leaving a social problem to charities and volunteers only makes a problem permanent. Large rescue charities tend to be very reluctant, if not unable to change, his words. And his question at the end is, can technology help to move the focus?
Yeah, we need to increase more pet ownership, or we need to make sure that placements are solid. And it's something that comes up in the rescue space, where you place a pet and it's maybe not a good fit. Maybe you chose a breed that's not right. And I think technology can help people make better, for example, better selections when they're considering their lifestyle, they're considering the type of pet that they choose to adopt. And if you're not working with a rescue, those pets go right back to the shelter, and they have such limited resources. And so that's just one idea that comes to mind is selecting a pet that's great for your lifestyle. Technology could absolutely be used to facilitate a better choice.
I love that, Zach, because a lot of the pet, pets end up in the shelters because people want the next best, whatever. You can name a county anywhere in the US and I can tell you what kind of breeds there. Belgian Malinois are so popular right now, huskies, and people think that there's not little cute fluffy dogs in shelters. There's any kind of breed. Boston Terriers are one of the most, it's anyway. So there's, French bulldogs, I think, are the ones that are very popular as well. And again, so, but to your point, I also would add to that, like, technology would hopefully be able to help owners keep their pets as well. Because if, you don't think that there's resources or things like that, a lot of pets get surrendered because they have health issues and people can't afford the vet care. So, I'd like to see more people keeping their pet as opposed to dumping them at the shelter because they think the shelter's a safe place for the pet, and sadly it's not. But yeah, I agree as well. Like, you know, will people use it? And I don't want to take away from, the great thought behind, using tech to research the right breed. That would be great if more people did research. There's people that go, "Oh, I didn't know how big the huskies get." I'm like, "Really? You don't know how big a husky gets? Okay, well, look online." So anyhow, I digress a little bit, but yeah, I mean, tech. There's so many ways to use it, and I love what you're doing because having that whole history, thinking from when, before I get into that, I mean, rescues can only take so many dogs. It's to Kieran's question, it's a broken system. It's never going to change unless there's big change at the legislative level and people start caring more about what's happening with backyard breeding and all kinds of stuff that's creating the overpopulation. So but sorry, I've lost my train of thought there. I just got on a tangent. But yeah, I mean, just love what you're doing. Rescues can't rescue, we can't rescue our way out of this. And so, even with respect to like when a person adopts a dog from a rescue group once the dog's out of the shelter, what you're doing is clutch, because you're right, it's very administrative for a rescue group. The smaller rescue groups, are drowning in paperwork and adoption returns and all that kind of stuff. So there's a whole bunch of stuff whereby technology can streamline things more effectively, and that whole ecosystem can be more efficient. But yeah, we all know there's bigger problems, but trying to deal with what we've got to make more efficient is what really I'm trying to do with my platform. So I'm trying to curate information about a specific dog so people are coming together and putting a plan in place, on an open chat maybe, whereby someone could say, "Hey, I've seen this dog," and they give the ID number at a shelter in California. And they're like, and someone else can say, "Hey, there's transparency. I'm also seeing foster for this dog," so that kind of thing. So having it kind of crowdsourced information is my vision. So anyway.
Cheryl, you picked up on vet expenses as being
Yeah,
one of
it's a
the
big problem.
stumbling. It is a big problem here in the UK as well as in the United States, and it probably is throughout the world. Zach, with what you're doing with building Nala, are you looking at how your technologies can possibly reduce that by using AI tech to reduce that cost by streamlining efficiencies within the vet industry for the pet parent?
Yeah, absolutely. In the US, in the past year, the number of people who are declining veterinary care has risen by 10%, and it's moved from 24% to 32%. This represents 37 million households in the US who are declining veterinary care due to rising costs. So it's a big problem, and we are looking into ways that we can provide support in an ethical and safe way. We don't. There's some challenges to that, but it is a big problem in the U.S. and something that we're directly looking into and working on.
Simon, would you like to add to Kieran's question of how tech can technology help move the focus from what you
Yeah,
said?
he picked up on one thing that I've particularly found. He mentioned maybe some of the challenges that charities have with technological development. This is both a problem relating to, say, mindset, how they imagine technology is developed, and also there's often a real lack of technological expertise. Now, if we go back to some of our projects, for example, we worked with a charity to help a rural community in a very rural region of Brazil develop an educational application that also showcased some of the cultural aspects of their regions, like the buildings, the towns, museums, places of historical interest. Now, this wasn't a case of us building an application for this community. We did two things. Not only did we very much include all the teachers in this region in the development of the application, we also used another organization that supports young coders and young technologists from disadvantaged cities. They were the actual people that did the coding. Because remember, within our definition of deep tech, it's not necessarily about using the most advanced technologies. It's doing something profound with technology. And sometimes, like a simple tune that just has a simple melody, but that is hauntingly beautiful, you can actually do the same nowadays with technologies to achieve very deep impact. And the way these projects have worked is that I have actually acted, and one or two other people have acted as contributing mentors to provide that overall level of expertise and experience for these younger people. But there are systemic ways of developing very powerful solutions for organizations that don't necessarily have either the resources or the experience and expertise. And this is where sometimes I say, don't just think of the people you're building solutions for. Think of their contributions as well. Again, not just the dogs, but the actors within the various ecosystems of AI technology for health or pet rescue. So I very much understand this particular maybe slight frustration or difficulty with working with charities, but there are solutions because it's not easy for organizations who don't necessarily have the complete resources. But this is what I'm saying. Deep technology, the solutions will come from ecosystems of conscious leaders and conscious creative people, rather than thinking about the traditional, say, San Francisco startup model, where you do your prototype, you pitch and pitch, and you really hope for venture capital funding. That isn't going to work, but there are very interesting solutions for this particular space when we get creative, when we rethink our impact, and we think about the relationships that we have.
That's fascinating. I love it. We've just had one more question come in from Panita Senjet, who is a Reboundog member down near Sheryl. She asked, how can organizations bring policies... Oh, I've lost it. Hang on, 2 secs. Oh, I've totally lost it. Oh gosh, see if I can get it back. Oh, I've lost it completely. Can you get that back for me? Hang on. Tech issue, I've lost this. Oh, hang on. Ben's phone. How can organizations bring policies related to pets and make the place more pet friendly? Because many carry the guilt of not being able to bring their pets to work. Being able to bring their pets can also help with mental health, which is crucial. And that was the question. So how do we address that issue? I guess she's looking at how do we address the issue of bringing pets into workplaces.
One thing that comes up on the technology side, and especially having a system of record about the pet, I can see even like behavioral notes or a behavioral record being shareable, something where a landlord or a leasing agent can see, okay, this husky has never kind of destigmatized certain breeds. Like this husky has never done anything. And so they're safe to bring in a public space, for example. Having like kind of official records that can be shareable. One thing we have in the U.S., I don't know if it's like this in other places. There's a lot of breed restrictions from insurance
Yeah.
providers, depending on like where I'm at now. I'm sure they have breed restrictions, and it's unfair to a lot of pets who don't have any of those behavioral issues. And we also, and Cheryl, I'm sure you see this, the environment also affects a pet's behavior as well. So
Yeah.
maybe they had some notes that the shelter has given on this pet. It might be unfair for them to apply that behavioral label to a dog, for example.
Yeah, I mean, breed-specific legislation is so real. I mean, you touched on it. Zach, you live in the U.S. We will have instances of people that'll adopt a dog out of a shelter and return it 3 days later to say because my landlord doesn't allow this breed, and it's like, well, your landlord has too much authority, I suppose. And half the time, I don't know if it's HOA stuff, but it's just the stigma and people have a lot of the bully breeds. We've got that here in the UK. It's horrible. There's instances. Any kind of breed can be aggressive. I'm not going to go down that path because I get too upset about it because it's ridiculous. But bigger breeds generally are the last ones that get adopted out of the shelters. 1 in 600 pit bulls get rescued out of a shelter, and it's cyclical. So how do we come up with policies? Well, that's an interesting question, and it's just one of those things where I don't have the answer, but it's just, people have to keep fighting for that. And I like your idea, Zach, where it's, let's not have a blanketed you know, way of thinking about a specific breed. It's an individual, just like people are individual, dogs are individual, they're sentient, they have different personalities, brought up a certain way, it affects them and impacts them. Shelter dogs have a bad stigma. But, I mean, bringing dogs into the workplace, you could have it exactly that. You could be like, okay, here's some behavioral notes of my dog, here's a video of my dog. My dog gets along with other dogs. Obviously, that will be important if you're allowing people to bring their dogs in to the workplace. You want to make sure that they're dog friendly. So policies, procedures. I mean, if I owned a big company, I'd have probably a big backyard for the dogs. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if I'm answering the question. It's just one of those things where I think it's individual, and I think it's just where you have to come together as a group to say, look, like I want to bring my dog into work. I don't want to leave my dog in the crate for 12 hours and just kind of go about it that way. And I mean, as an example, like I love the UK for various reasons, but I love it more so because dogs are allowed into pubs here. I think back, now things may have changed. I haven't lived in Canada for almost 11 years, but thinking back of, you know, I didn't see too many people bringing their dog even on a patio outside in Canada. It's a lot colder there. Let's be real. They're not going to sit outside when it's minus 20. But, just in general, it's just more dog friendly here in the UK. So I think it's just one of those situations where you just have to start and be an advocate and say, look, like this is some ground rules. If we have a specific area the dogs need to stay, or the dogs have to get along with other dogs, etc., and just start there. So
And luckily, I live in Brazil, and Brazil again is one of the great dog-loving countries of the world. And just to look at infrastructure, in addition to kennels, and there are, of course, charities here that do dog rescue work. It's excellent work. There's also a huge number of, say, dog hotels. Now, what is a dog hotel? These are kind of kennels that are based inside towns, inside cities. And it can be quite common for people to leave their dogs there in the daytime while they're working, and then they collect their dogs in the evening rather than just leaving the dogs at home. People love their dogs so much. And obviously, dogs are able to stay in these hotels for maybe a week or a couple of weeks when people are traveling. And the reason I use the word infrastructure is that it's important to give business leaders confidence that you really have a complete way of caring for the dog. So you can work with, say, the owners of the dogs using this infrastructure. So should there be a day or two where, for example, there might be a sales event at the organization, it may well be the case that you can't have the dog in the business that day. It's great if you think about a country like Brazil, because there is the infrastructure for a place, a very high quality place for the dog to stay. So I'd be really thinking about, if we think about this on a city by city basis, what infrastructure does that particular town or city have to really help give the organization confidence that this is going to work? Because obviously there are huge benefits by having a dog in the office, but there are some times where, maybe it may not be ideal to have the pet there. So we really need to think about managing the whole lifetime of the dog at that organization. And, fortunately, somewhere like Brazil, we have that infrastructure to make a project like this happen.
So we're all going to move to Brazil tomorrow. This has been a wonderful conversation. It's given some real insights into the way tech can be used for good. I'm mega humbled to have the three of you in conversation. In the, I won't say near future, in the next couple of months, I'd love to have you back and carry on this conversation, so I can see so much education that's been parted here for people to take away between the three of you. I can see the three of you having a natter in the background. It's touched on issues. Last month we had a conversation of how do for-profits work with the non-profits, how do they implement new tools, which is technology, and you can watch the recording of that up on our YouTube channel. It's touched on dog friendliness in public buildings and public spaces, which is Beth Miller's make a pun pet subject as such, and she's been on the comment. And it's so cyclical. using Simon's word of ecosystem, it's such a cyclical conversation. And it comes down to, I think, it's these conversations, it's the education that's necessary in society. It's not just about putting a policy in place and saying we must do X and we must do Y. I think it comes back to taking a step backwards and looking at how do we educate? How do we start to use Zach's technology to educate conversations veterinarians have with their clients? How do we use Cheryl's technology to educate rescues and shelters to work together more closely to create that symbiotic, mutually symbiotic bond between the two of them, rather than being stuck in the classic case of a silo and each one's in an art, using Kieran's wording, it's an archaic system that, and Sheryl touched on it, it's a broken system. I think we have huge opportunity in the next decade to disrupt. And I do believe the disruption will come through technology. It won't just be the chat GTP doing things faster, and Simon's touched on the word of control. It's how we embody the potential of AI and tech and deep tech to actually change the world, to change the system for a better. So touching on this funding guy I met yesterday, it's how we use it for socialization. How do we address mental health using it? I'm going to go around the room and ask each of you for a takeaway that you'd like to leave the audience with, that you recommend they read, view, or something you've read recently that's put a light bulb in your moment that you think they should go and read afterwards. And I'm going to say thank you very much for your time today.
I can go first.
Okay.
I have one. I really liked reading Your Dog is Your Mirror. It's by Kevin Behan. I just looked it up. Yeah. So it's like just talking about how the personality of your dog is reflexive, and a lot of when you're bringing your dog into the workplace, a lot of interesting situations come up, and you learn about yourself. So like that's something that I've learned, having dogs in New York City, interacting with thousands of people every day. There's all of these little situations, and even just how people will interact with your dog as well. Like I have a husky. Some people don't like huskies. You can tell from far away. If like we have people walk on the other side of the street because I'm with the husky. He's just being a husky, but yeah. So I would recommend like that book, and yeah, check it out.
Put it in the show notes, or send it to me for email, and I'll get Ben to add it for when the YouTube video goes up.
Spencer, if I may, instead of recommending a book, I would recommend people, when I talk to people about the shelter crisis, some people will just be like, oh, that's horrible. I don't, they put their head in the sand. Others are, really taken aback. And I just would recommend people just educate yourself on what's going on at your local shelter. I get all the time, how can I help? I don't physically go into the shelter, but I've, not to say that someone's going to build a platform tomorrow to do something, but there's something that everyone can do. And you never know. And I've had people say, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, well, share a post. Go on social media. I only have $200. It doesn't matter. There might be one person in your network that will either be inspired to go volunteer at a shelter, adopt or foster, or just get involved somehow, because it's just educating is the biggest thing. People need to understand that it is a crisis and it's happening, and it's not going away by ignoring it. So that's my takeaway.
Thank you very much. Simon, I'll leave you.
Yeah, in terms of our mission to help people, I have a blog, Transition Consciousness, and there I've done my best to put an awful lot of articles to help people and inspire people understand how they can, amplify their impact in the world. I also have a Medium blog with a lot of articles and frameworks that's a bit more technological based. So I'd love to share that in the research notes. And for anyone who really wants to find more about the really technical how-to in terms of what we've been talking about, a lot of the know-how we've put into our book, Deep Tech, in the Amplified organization. It was really written to help exactly people like all of yourselves really understand how to deploy technology and work with it in a ecosystemic manner. So I really hope there's a lot of value that people will gain from that.
I have. I'll put it up again. It's been sitting on your shoulder. It's now sitting on my shoulder. There you go. Highly recommended. It's an easy read, but it makes so much sense. It's one of the, I know Sam's on here, but it is one of the better books I've read in the last few years. It better in the fact that it resonated with the work that I'm doing, the work that Reboundog's doing. Sam and I have a loose connection with Schumacher College and that ethos down in Devon from many years ago, so we resonate on that background. But it just touched so much things on ecosystems and the way we see the world. So I'm slightly biased, but yeah, this has been great. I'm going to say thank you very much. We must do this again because it's wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It's been brilliant.
Thank you for having me.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. It put a smile on my face. Thank you.
For futures untold, rebound.